Remy Ma parked an LED billboard truck in front of the State Farm Arena on the night Claressa Shields was supposed to be having the biggest moment of her entire year, and she had that truck flashing 3 lines on a loop: "Bitches want all of my hand-me-downs. If you really want to go, realest ever made," while half of Atlanta drove past and filmed it on their phones. Claressa had just walked into the building where she was about to drop from heavyweight down to 160 pounds and reclaim the middleweight titles she used to own. And the soundtrack to her own redemption night was her man's estranged wife turning her entire relationship into a punchline on wheels. And here is the part everybody keeps getting wrong. This was never about a music video. This was never even really about a song. This is about who actually controls the narrative when a 2-time Olympic gold medalist stops being the story and starts being the subject of it. Because look at what actually happened in the last 72 hours. The day before the fight, Remy Ma drops a diss record over the Knuck If You Buck beat, the exact record Claressa said in front of cameras she loves, by the way, and it is instantly everywhere. The video gets teased with Amanda Serrano and Alycia Baumgardner in it, 2 of the biggest names in women's boxing, both signed to the same promotion that just banned Claressa from all of its events. The truck circles the arena. The blogs pick it up. The reaction channels fire up. And Claressa Shields, the greatest female boxer of her generation, the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, spends her own fight week responding to Remy Ma. That tells you everything about who won this round before a single punch was thrown. But I'm going to take you through all of it: the timeline, the lyrics, the ban, the business, the little 2-week deadline she handed herself at the press conference, and when we get to what the MVP ban actually did to her career, and I promise you, we are getting there, you're going to understand why this beef might be the only thing keeping her relevant right now. This is one of those situations where the whole internet thinks it understands the story and completely misses the engine underneath it. Everybody is arguing about who's winning a rap beef between a living legend and an all-time great boxer, and nobody is asking the question that actually matters. Why does Claressa Shields keep fighting this war on Remy Ma's battlefield, at Remy Ma's time of choosing, in front of Remy Ma's crowd? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. For anybody just tuning in, let me put the whole board in front of you so we're working with the same facts. Remy Ma is a Bronx-born, Terror Squad-raised, Grammy-winning lyricist, the woman responsible for Conceited, for Lean Back, for some of the most quoted verses in the history of female rap. A catalog that stretches back decades and still gets played in clubs and cars and Get Ready With Me videos to this very day. Claressa Shields is from Flint, Michigan, and she is, on paper, everything she says she is: 2 Olympic gold medals, amateur championships out the wazoo, and the only female boxer, make that one of the only boxers in the history of the sport. Period. To be undisputed champion in 3 different weight classes. She is a 5-division champion, the pound-for-pound #1 in her sport, and right now she also happens to be in a very public relationship with Papoose, the rapper who is Remy Ma's estranged husband. That's the triangle everything keeps orbiting: 3 massive egos, 1 tangled history, and an audience that cannot look away. Now, the backstory. This thing has been building for a while. Last year, Remy released W.I. Fell, and if you know the culture, you know what that record did: a song that people read immediately as shots at both Papoose and Claressa, and it kicked off a cycle of social media back and forth, fan base warfare, podcast segments, all of it. Then, reportedly, back in April, Papoose's legal team issued a cease and desist. That's what the reporting says, trying to put a lid on some of the stuff being said. And Claressa went on the interview circuit running her mouth about the situation in ways that guaranteed the story would not die. There was the Ariel Helwani show where she dropped a freestyle, shouted out Eve, Lil Kim, Foxy Brown, Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, Latto, Glorilla, and then, when Helwani specifically put Remy Ma's name in her mouth, she said, and I'm quoting her, "I don't know many of her songs, so no, I can't say that." Think about how bold that is in the year of our Lord 2026. You don't know Conceited? You don't know Lean Back? You don't know anything from a woman who has been in this culture for over 2 decades, who you are currently in a very public war with. That answer alone told everybody what the real strategy was supposed to be: pretend she doesn't exist, and maybe she'll go away. Except Remy Ma does not go away. Remy Ma escalates. So fast forward to fight week. Claressa is coming off a run at heavyweight. She cut 38 pounds to get down to 160. She fought K. Scott in front of more than 16,000 people at State Farm Arena on August 15th, and she stopped Scott in the 6th round. reclaimed the WBC and WBA middleweight titles, and improved to 19-0. One-on-one, inside a ring, nobody on this earth can touch her. That is not even an argument. That is a fact. But here's the reality she keeps refusing to accept. The fight wasn't the story. The song was the story. The video tease was the story. The truck parked outside her own arena was the story. And that's the part that's eating her alive, because Claressa Shields built her entire brand on being undeniable, on forcing the world to respect her through pure excellence, and Remy Ma just demonstrated, in the most public way possible, that you can be the greatest fighter alive and still lose the week to somebody who outstrategized you. So now the stakes are clear, and they are bigger than clicks. Musically, Remy is doing exactly what she has always done, at a championship level, with a video coming that could turn this into a permanent piece of the culture. Culturally, this is the loudest crossover moment between women's boxing and hip-hop in years, and it's happening at Claressa's expense. Financially, Remy is monetizing the beef every time somebody streams, every time a blog posts, every time a reaction channel like this one opens its mouth. And reputationally, Claressa is on the clock. Every interview, every post, every little jab she can't resist is being converted into Remy's numbers. She said it herself at the press conference, and I'm coming back to it. She doesn't have a fight locked until winter. She's got a decision to make about her own weight class, and she told us, according to the reports coming out of that room. There's a 2-week clock running on her career right now. And the only thing she chose to spend her energy on during that window was responding to a diss track. So the question this whole video is chasing, if she really doesn't beef with people, if she really just beats them, then why is she standing in the middle of Remy Ma's battlefield, answering Remy Ma's calls every single time? Hold that thought, because the evidence is about to get real uncomfortable. Let's start with the actual weapon, because I want everybody to understand how clean this move was. Remy Ma dropped one ago on Friday, August 14th, the day of the weigh-in, 24 hours before Claressa stepped into the ring, and she laid it over the Knuck If You Buck instrumental. If you don't know that record, Crime Mob, Atlanta anthem, the kind of beat that makes cars swerve, and the same song Claressa had literally just told reporters she loved when she was asked about the situation before the fight. Remy heard that, took the most Atlanta record in existence, and turned it into a diss track about Claressa Shields in Atlanta on the night Claressa was headlining in Atlanta. That's not a coincidence, that's choreography. And the bars, as reported in every outlet that covered it, bitches want all of my hand-me-downs. If you really want to go, realest ever made. I want you to sit with that first line. Hand-me-downs. The whole song is built on the idea that everything Claressa has in this situation, the man, the attention, the role, is Remy's leftover. That's the kind of bar that doesn't need a music video to hit. The words do the work. And the blogs picked it up within hours, the way everybody knew they would. Then came piece number 2, and this is where I have to laugh, because it's so disrespectful it's almost beautiful. The day of the fight, Remy Ma had a high-definition LED billboard truck circling the State Farm Arena, the same building where Claressa was getting ready to fight for her life at 160 pounds, and on that truck on loop were those 3 lines from the song, playing for every fight fan, every media person, every casual pedestrian in the city of Atlanta. She didn't just release a record. She drove the record to the venue and parked it in Claressa's face like a Trojan horse with speakers. Somebody talk to me about levels. That is a rapper who understands that in 2026, the music is the marketing and the marketing is the music, and she executed both at the exact moment her opponent needed the spotlight the most. Then there's the video itself. The teaser hit, and the internet lost its mind. Alycia Baumgardner and Serrano, 2 of the most recognizable women in boxing, glammed up, riding in a Rolls Royce, throwing up middle fingers, tongues out, having the time of their lives. All while Remy's voice lays into their mutual rival. Now, we're going to come back to why they said yes, because that is a whole separate layer of disrespect. But on the surface, just think about the image composition. The 2 women Claressa has beef with, in the video for the song about her, with Remy Ma writing the script and directing the scene. It's a photo finish of an L, and the fight hadn't even started yet. And the 4th piece of surface evidence is the counterpunch that wasn't. Claressa's answer to all of this was to go viral saying she doesn't know Remy's music, and then after the fight, when the reporters put the song in her face, she delivered the line that's going to be quoted back to her for the rest of her life. I don't beef with them, I beat them. And then she doubled down her opponents have to talk about me, she said, for them to even make any type of news. Rissy, respectfully, that is not a strategy. That is a coping mechanism. Because here's the thing about saying you don't beef with people. It works a lot better when there isn't a Billboard truck playing a song about you in front of your own fight. You don't get to claim the high ground and then spend your entire press conference explaining why you're above it all. That's the surface. That's what everybody saw. But the surface is where this story fools you, because what actually happened underneath is much, much worse for her, and this is where the gloves come off. And oh, do I have more? Because everything I just walked you through, the truck, the timing, the hand-me-downs bars, that's the trailer. The real movie is the backstory nobody is putting together. Why Amanda and Alycia said yes, what the MVP ban did to Claressa's leverage, the knockout record Amanda Serrano is chasing right now, and the 2-week career deadline Claressa announced with her own mouth at the press conference. I'm going to connect all of it. And to the GWAT stands in the comments who are already typing, she won the fight though. Yes, she did, and that is exactly the point. So stay with me. This part is for the people who want to understand the game being played underneath the game. Here's where it gets inside. First piece, go back to last year's WIFL record and watch what happened after it. Remy Ma dropped that. The entire culture read it as her taking shots at the situation, and instead of cooling it, the response from Papooses' side, reportedly, was legal, a cease and desist sent in April, telling her to stand down on the commentary. Now, I want to be careful with the reporting here. That's according to the outlets covering this saga, and none of us are in that courtroom, but what matters for our story is what Remy did with it. She could have folded. She could have backed off and let the lawyers talk. Instead, she went back to the studio and she dropped a harder record to the hardest beat in Atlanta history, in the same week as the biggest fight of Claressa's year. That's the difference between a rapper and a fighter. A rapper treats a cease and desist like a punch to roll with. Second piece, and this one quietly shifted the whole game, Amanda Serrano. Forget the video for a second and look at what Serrano did back in May. She stopped her opponent in El Paso, Texas, and tied Christy Martin's all-time record for most knockouts in women's boxing history, 32 knockouts, a record that stood as a monument for more than a decade, tied by an active fighter who is still improving, whose record now sits at 49 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw. And here's the thing. Serrano did it on MVP's platform, the same promotion that banned Claressa, and she's got a featherweight title defense coming against a top-ranked contender, a fight reportedly slated to premiere on TikTok Live, of all places, with the all-time knockout record on the line, pushed by Jake Paul's promotional machine with no paywall. Serrano is about to put a world title fight in the palm of every phone on the planet, and she's doing it as the direct result of the machinery Claressa got herself banned from. You see where I'm going. Third piece, the ban itself, because this is the context that makes everything click. Back in May, at MVP's inaugural MMA event in Las Vegas, Claressa and Alycia Baumgardner got into it backstage. Footage circulated that appeared to show them exchanging words before Claressa reached across and slapped her, and MVP announced she was banned indefinitely from company events, citing a strict zero-tolerance policy. Baumgardner claimed she was assaulted without provocation and said she intended to pursue legal action. Claressa's side, she said Baumgardner disrespected her first, claimed the girl said she'd beat her ass right there, called her a liar playing the victim, and then she dropped the post that sums up her entire predicament, and I'm quoting her. "You cannot ban me from a place I didn't want to be." Now here's where I give credit where it's due, because Claressa actually has legitimate gripes with Jake Paul and his company. She pointed out, accurately, that Jake celebrated her MMA loss while she was fighting with 8 stitches in her head, and she fired off that karma tweet referencing his loss to Anthony Joshua. Those are real shots, and they landed. But, and this is the nuance her defenders always skip, having valid grievances against the promoter does not change the fact that she slapped a coworker on camera and got herself locked out of the deepest roster in women's boxing. The exact roster that contains Serrano and Baumgardner and most of the marquee names she could actually fight. You can be right about the system and still be the one who got ejected from it. Both things are true, and both things are her problem. Fourth piece, the teaming up claim, which is the weakest thing she said and the easiest to dismantle. Claressa keeps framing that video as a conspiracy. They all had to team up because they can't beat her one-on-one. Except Amanda Serrano and Alycia Baumgardner weren't teaming up against her. They're on the same roster. They're coworkers. There are pictures and interviews of Claressa and Baumgardner being cool going back years, long before the song existed, back when Baumgardner first signed with MVP, and they were all part of the same promotional push. Serrano has been in that building from day one. The reason they're in the video together is the same reason they end up in the same frames at the same events. They work for the same company, and the same company just told Claressa she can't come to work anymore. That's not a team-up, that's a Tuesday. And the fifth piece of cultural evidence is the quiet one, but it might be the loudest of all. Claressa, the woman who says she doesn't know Remy's music, posted to her platform that nobody should walk out to lean back anymore. The Terror Squad classic Remy is all over, and the internet took it exactly the way you'd expect. You don't know her songs, but you're out here policing DJ rotation? You see, this is the pattern. Every single time she tries to play above the noise, her own hand reaches back into the noise. And that's the pattern we're about to put under a microscope, because behind all the theater, there is a business calculation happening that changes how you read this entire war. This is the gear shift I promised you. We're leaving the culture and going into the system. Let's talk money first, because that's where the asymmetry is devastating. Remy Ma just made something that will pay her for the rest of her life. That's what a song is when it's done right, an asset. It sits on streaming platforms, it gets added to playlists, it gets posted on Instagram stories, it gets synced, it gets played at parties, it gets quoted in comment sections for years. Every single time Claressa responds to it, every interview, every post, every little jab, she is driving another stream, another blog post, another reaction video that circulates the record to people who never would have heard it. The beef is not Remy's problem. The beef is Remy's distribution channel. And this is the part that has to sting, because the money in women's boxing, especially above a certain weight, does not work like a catalog. A fight purse is a one-time event, controlled by a promoter, dependent on a ticket-selling card, an opponent with a name, a network deal, a date that works for everybody. Claressa told the press she probably isn't fighting again until December or January. That's not a rumor, that's her own words, which means she is facing months with no fight purse at all, looking at live streams and podcasts to keep her name moving. Meanwhile, the record that was made about her is compounding interest every single day. That's the first systemic angle. Claressa is fighting for wages, and Remy built herself an annuity. The second angle is the one her camp does not want to discuss, what the ban actually cost her, beyond the events. MVP, whatever you think of Jake Paul and the gimmicks, is the biggest stage in women's boxing right now. It's the machine that made Serrano's record run into a cultural moment, that turned the Taylor fights into history, that puts world titles on TikTok Live with tens of millions of potential eyeballs, that signs the names casual fans actually recognize. And Claressa, the self-proclaimed GWOT, the pound-for-pound number one, is on the outside of all of it, banned, by her own actions, from the deepest bench in her own sport. You cannot convince me that walking away from that roster is a position of strength. That's not leverage, that's exile. And before anybody says she doesn't need them, remember what she needed them for: matchmaking, promotion, distribution, a calendar. When your two biggest rivals are inside the machine and you're outside it, every negotiation you have from now on starts with you explaining to a promoter why you're worth the risk of the drama you bring. That's a weak hand, and everybody at the table knows it. The third angle is the one she handed us herself at the press conference, and it's the most revealing thing she said all week. Claressa told the room she has about 2 weeks to decide whether she's staying at middleweight or going back up to heavyweight, because the sanctioning bodies want an answer. That's how it works. They don't let one champion freeze 2 divisions while she plays hopscotch. The show has to move on. Now, on the surface, that's just boxing bureaucracy. But read underneath it. The women's talent pool at the higher weights is thin. Everybody in the sport knows it. The same name cycle through the same fights, and Claressa's claim that she'll fight anybody does not change the structural reality that the fights have to exist first. They need an opponent who checks out, a promoter willing to make it, a network willing to air it, a purse that makes sense. She can say she takes all challenges until she's blue in the face, but a challenge isn't a fight until somebody signs the contract and writes the check. So here she is, no fight until winter, a 2-week decision clock on her weight class, locked out of the biggest platform in her sport, and the only thing generating headlines around her name right now is a rap song she claims not to have heard. Tell me again who's winning this war of attrition. Tell me again who benefits every time she swipes at that phone and feeds the feed. And now we get to the part that changes the entire reading of the story, the part that I think everybody has been too deep in the drama to actually name. Here's the truth bomb, and I want everybody to sit with it. This beef is not a distraction from Claressa Shields' career. It has become the engine of it. Think about what we just established. She has no fight until winter. She is banned from the promotion that controls the deepest roster in her division's ecosystem. Her two most prominent rivals are headlining the biggest non-paywall event in women's boxing this year. And the attention she currently has, the attention that is keeping her name in the discourse during the longest gap of her recent career, is attention that Remy Ma manufactured and that Claressa herself keeps feeding with every response. That is the catastrophic irony. The woman who says she doesn't beef with bums cannot stop beefing, because without the beef, right now, she is a great fighter with nothing to promote. And she knows it. That's why she can't resist. That's why the I Don't Know Her songs lie was never going to hold, because her own behavior contradicts it within the same news cycle. She posts about lean back. She calls press conferences to explain that she's above it all. She responds to critics who call her pressed. You cannot spend 5 days telling the world a song doesn't bother you and then spend every single day talking about the song. Now, let me also name the pattern that this whole saga keeps revealing, because it's the one thing the stan accounts will never admit. Claressa is the common denominator. Everybody she is at war with right now was once cool with her. Amanda Serrano was in her corner, publicly, historically. That woman has called her the GWAT and defended her against comparisons for years. Alycia Baumgardner was in pictures with her, doing joint interviews, being professional peers. Franchon Cruz-Dezern was a friend and became a feud. Laila Ali was an early mentor figure in this sport, and that relationship has curdled publicly too. The names change, the ending doesn't. And at a certain point, when one person has burned every bridge in the building, you have to ask yourself what part of the fire they keep carrying. That's not hating on her boxing. I have said it before and I'll say it again. Nobody in this beef can complain about her record or her resume. That woman's fists are certified. But the best fighter in the world can still be the worst teammate, the worst promoter, the worst narrator of her own story, and all of those failures are showing up on the same screen at the same time. And here's the part that really gets me, the part that makes this whole thing feel like a Greek tragedy wearing boxing gloves. She throws rocks and hides her hands. She records bars herself, she posts, she talks, she needles, and then when the response comes back harder, she becomes the victim of a narrative she claims the media invented. She told us, with a straight face, that she doesn't have beef with Remy Ma while standing in the middle of the biggest beef of her year. She told us the media and the fans invented it, while she was out here policing Remy's catalog and resharing clips. That's not peacekeeping, that's gaslighting the audience. And the sad part is she doesn't even need to do it. She's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, the only woman ever to be undisputed in 3 weight classes. She just put on a dominant performance, dropping 38 pounds to reclaim her belts in front of 16,000 people. That story, told right, is a legend. But she cannot let it be told right, because letting the work speak requires silence, and silence is the one thing she has never mastered. The more she talks, the more she loses. The more she responds, the more the song plays. And the person who understood all of this from the very beginning, who picked the beat, the city, the date, the video, the truck, the whole choreography, is the person everybody keeps telling to shut up. That's the reveal right there. This isn't Claressa versus Remy. This is Claressa versus the one thing she has never been able to beat, her own mouth. And now the landing, because I want to talk about who this moment actually belongs to. While Claressa was cutting 38 pounds to fight a 42-year-old in front of an arena she had to help fill, Remy Ma was building a moment that doesn't need a venue at all. That's the crystallizing contrast of this entire saga. One woman fights for $2 and a dream in a ring that closes, and the other woman makes something that lives on every phone in the world forever. Remy didn't need to win a fight to win this week. She didn't need a title to hold the crown. She did what she's always done. She rapped, she schemed, she moved with the economy of somebody who has been the underdog and the favorite and everything in between. She took a cease and desist and turned it into a record. She took an enemy spotlight and turned it into her premiere. She is doing the thing she was born to do, at the highest level, and she is getting paid for it while the woman exhausted by her presence keeps volunteering for the rematch. And I want to be fair here, because fairness is what separates commentary from propaganda. Nothing about this makes Claressa a lesser boxer. She is a monumental athlete, and the numbers are the numbers. But boxing is the smallest part of the battle she's currently losing. Remy is unbothered in the way that only a person with a catalog and a legacy can be unbothered. She has already won the arguments that matter, the ones that play out over decades, not fight weeks. She's not chasing Claressa's approval. She's not begging for the last word. She's not angling for a sit-down. She's letting the song do what songs do. And the most beautiful part of it, the part that casuals will miss, is that Remy doesn't actually need Claressa to respond to keep winning, but Claressa needs Remy to exist to keep her own engine running. That's the imbalance that decides this whole thing. One of them is fighting for something permanent. The other one is fighting for a comment section. And the evidence, every single piece of it, the record, the truck, the video, the roster, the ban, the 2-week clock is pointing the same way. Remy Ma knew exactly what she was doing. Claressa Shields still doesn't know what hit her. And this is only the start, I promise you that. Here's what you need to be watching in the weeks ahead, and I mean actually watching. First, the full Wanna Go video. The teaser was the appetizer. Remy has a full production coming with Serrano and Baumgardner in it, and if the teaser was that loud, the full piece is going to be a permanent chapter in the culture. That's not a prediction, that's a warning. Second, Amanda Serrano's TikTok live title defense, with the all-time knockout record on the line. Watch how many people tune into a world title fight on a phone with no paywall, and then watch how the boxing establishment tries to explain why they couldn't do that for Claressa. Third, the 2-week decision. Claressa has to pick a weight class, and whatever she picks, she has to find a fight, and her own mouth has already floated Lauren Price and Tam Thibault. So watch who actually signs, and watch what the number looks like. Because the number is going to tell us exactly how much leverage she lost. And fourth, the legal thread. We saw the cease and desist play out once, and this song is 100 times louder than the last one, so keep your eyes on what the lawyers do next, because in this saga the paperwork is part of the content. Now, before I get out of here, I want to leave y'all with the next one, because the deeper I went into this story, the more I realized the fight we should all actually be watching hasn't even happened yet. See, Claressa keeps saying she'll fight anybody, and she keeps name-dropping Lauren Price, the unified welterweight champion, the one fight that would actually define her legacy in this era. But there's a reason that fight keeps getting mentioned and never getting signed. And it has nothing to do with Claressa's willingness. There's a number attached to it that changes everything, and a behind-the-scenes story about who's really blocking it, and why that nobody in the mainstream media is touching. When I tell you why that fight is the key to the last 2 years of her career, and what it has to do with the same promotional machinery that just banned her, you're going to look at this entire beef completely differently. That's next.